The first thing she heard was dirt hitting wood. Not rain, not hail. Dirt. Handfuls of it, landing on something 6 inches above her face with a sound like fingers drumming on a table. Then shovelfuls. Heavier, faster, the rhythm of a man working efficiently because he had somewhere to be. Mara Sitko opened her eyes. Darkness. Total. The kind that has weight, that presses against your pupils like thumbs. She tried to sit up. Her forehead hit wood. 4 inches of clearance. Her shoulders touched walls on both sides. Her feet pressed against a flat surface. Her hands, free, not tied, pushed against the lid above her. It didn't move. The dirt was getting louder. Thicker. The sound was changing, less hollow, more muffled, as inch by inch the space between her and the world filled with earth. She screamed. The sound bounced off the wood and hit her own face. Nobody heard it. The man with the shovel didn't pause. She reached for her pockets. Left, empty. Right, something hard, rectangular, glass-faced. Her phone. She pulled it out. The screen lit up, blinding in the total dark. She squinted at it, her hands shaking so badly the phone nearly slipped. 3% battery. 11:47 p.m. 1 bar of signal. And a text notification she hadn't seen, sent 2 hours ago from the man who'd put her here. You should have signed the papers, Mara. Sweet dreams. His name was Julian Cross, and the last thing Mara remembered before waking in this box was his face. Handsome, controlled, smiling at her across a glass of wine in his living room, while something bitter dissolved on her tongue, and the room went soft and then went black. She had 3% battery, 1 bar, and approximately 40 minutes of air. She called 911. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Mara Sitko. I've been buried alive. Quick favor. If your heart just started beating faster, tap like and subscribe. Because Mara had 3% battery to save her own life. And the man who put her underground was already home, already in bed, already certain she'd never wake up. Ma'am, can you repeat that? I'm in a box. Underground. Someone drugged me and buried me. I can hear dirt being shoveled on top of me. I don't know where I am. Are you injured? I don't know. I can't move. The box is small. There's no light. My phone has 3% battery. Please hurry. Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. Can you describe anything about your location? Any sounds, smells, anything you remember before? His name is Julian Cross. He lives at 4100 Ridgecrest Drive. He drugged me at his house. I woke up here. That's all I know. Can you feel movement? Vibration? Are you in a vehicle? No, I'm underground. I can hear dirt. Someone is burying me. The 911 operator, a woman named Denise, who'd been doing this job for 11 years and had heard things that would flatten most people, felt her hands go cold on the keyboard. I'm dispatching police and rescue. I need you to stay on the line. My battery is at 3%. I might not have long. Then we need to work fast. Mara, I'm going to try to trace your phone's GPS. Keep it powered on. Okay. While I do that, tell me about Julian Cross. Why did he do this? Mara pressed her hand against the wood above her. The dirt sound had stopped. The shoveling was done. Wherever she was now fully underground. The air was already getting thick. He's my husband's business partner, Mara said. Her voice shook, but held. Was. My husband died 8 months ago. Heart attack. Left me everything. The company, the properties, the accounts. Julian wanted me to sign a transfer agreement, give him controlling interest. I said no. You said no, and he buried you. He's been pressuring me for months. Phone calls, lawyers, threats. Last week he invited me for dinner to discuss a compromise. I shouldn't have gone. I knew I shouldn't have gone. What happened at dinner? Wine. He poured it himself. I tasted something. Bitter, metallic. I said, "Something's wrong with this wine," and he smiled and said, "Give it a minute." And then, nothing. I woke up here. 2% battery. Mara, I have your GPS signal. It's approximate. You're showing in a rural area, Henderson County. The coordinates are going to rescue now. How long? I don't have an ETA yet. Units are being dispatched. How long do I have? In here? Denise paused. She knew the answer. A sealed box underground. Depending on size, a person had between 60 and 90 minutes of breathable air. Mara had already used some of that unconscious. You have time, Denise said. Rescue is fast. I need you to breathe slowly. Small breaths. Don't waste air talking if you don't need to. I need to talk. If I stop talking, I'll panic, and if I panic, I'll use the air faster. Then talk. Tell me about your husband. David. His name was David Sitko. He was a good man. Built a logistics company from nothing. 1 truck, 1 route, 1 driver. That was him. By the time he died, it was worth $90 million. And Julian Cross? Julian came in as an investor 10 years ago. Put in $5 million, got a 30% stake. But David ran everything. Julian was the money guy. Connections, clients, the face at the galas. He didn't build anything. He just stood next to what David built and smiled. And when David died? Julian assumed he'd take over. David's will said otherwise. Everything went to me. The house, the company, the controlling shares. David didn't trust Julian. He told me once, 6 months before he died, if anything happens to me, don't let Julian near the company. He'll strip it for parts. Did you tell anyone that? I told my lawyer. And I told Julian. To his face. 3 months ago. I sat across from him in a conference room and said, David didn't trust you with his company, and neither do I. The answer is no. How did he react? He smiled. That's what Julian does. He smiles when he's angry, the way other people clench their fists. It's the scariest thing about him. You never see the violence coming because the face never changes. 1% battery. Mara. Battery. I know. Rescue is en route. Henderson County Search and Rescue. They have your GPS coordinates. But Mara, the signal is approximate. It could be a radius of several hundred feet. Several hundred feet? They'll find you, but it might take time. I don't have time. You have more than you think. Breathe slow. Small sips of air. You're doing great. I'm in a box underground, and I'm going to die because a man wanted a company he didn't build. You're not going to die. I've been doing this job for 11 years. I don't lose people. Not tonight. Mara pressed her hand against the lid. The wood was cheap. Pine, thin, the kind you'd buy at a lumber yard for $30. Julian hadn't even spent real money on her coffin. The thought made her laugh. A short, choked sound that used too much air. Mara, don't laugh. I know that sounds insane, but laughing uses 3 times the oxygen of breathing. He bought me a cheap coffin. A billionaire's business partner, and he buried me in a $30 box. That tells you something about him. It tells me everything about him. The phone screen dimmed, auto brightness dropping to save power. Mara turned it off completely. Black screen, call still active, phone against her ear in the dark. Denise? I'm here. If the phone dies before they find me, tell them to check Julian's property. He owns land in Henderson County, 40 acres off Route 9. David mentioned it once. Julian bought it for a hunting lodge that was never built. Empty land, no structures. Nobody goes there. Route 9, Henderson County, 40 acres. Julian Cross. I've got it. And Denise? Yeah? My daughter, Sophie. She's 12. She's at my sister's house in Knoxville. If I don't, you're getting out.
Say it. I'm getting out. Again. I'm getting out. Good. Now breathe. Small. Slow. I'm not going anywhere. The phone died. The screen went black. The last light in Mara's world, a rectangle of blue-white glow the size of a playing card, disappeared, and the dark rushed in to fill the space like water filling a lung. She was alone, underground, in silence so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. Fast, too fast, burning oxygen she couldn't replace. She pressed both hands against the lid. Pushed. Nothing. Pushed harder. The wood creaked, but didn't give. The weight of the dirt above her, 2 feet, maybe 3, held it down like a hand on a chest. She screamed again. The sound died inside the box. Then she stopped. Stopped screaming. Stopped pushing. Stopped. She thought about Sophie, 12 years old. David's eyes. The way she laughed. Full, unguarded. The laugh of a child who still believed the world was mostly good. She thought about David. The first truck. The one route. The man who built everything from nothing and died at his kitchen sink with a coffee mug in his hand and a company worth $90 million that he'd never trade for one more morning with his family. She thought about the box, the cheap pine, the man who'd put her here, and she decided, not with words, not with a plan, but with something deeper, something biological, something that lived in the same place where mothers lift cars off children and soldiers run toward fire instead of away. That she was not dying in Julian Cross's $30 coffin. She felt the lid again. Not pushing now. Feeling. Running her fingers along the edges, the grain, the joints. The box was crude. The corners were nailed, not screwed. The wood was thin, 3/4 inch at most. Pine, the weakest common lumber. She positioned herself, knees up, pressing against the lid, feet flat on the floor, hands braced against the sides. She pushed with her legs, not her arms, her legs. The strongest muscles in the human body, the ones that carry you through a life, the ones that don't quit until the body they're attached to does. The wood groaned, creaked. She felt movement, not the lid, but the nails. The nails were pulling. 1/4 inch, half, the cheap pine giving way at the joints because Julian Cross had bought the cheapest box he could find and hadn't bothered to check the construction. She pushed again, harder. Her knees screamed, her back arched off the floor. The nails pulled another 1/2 inch. Dirt trickled through the gap. into her face, her eyes, her mouth. She spat it out, kept pushing. The corner joint gave way. One side of the lid cracked upward, 2 inches, 3, and dirt poured in, filling the space around her head and shoulders. She turned her face sideways, pressed her nose into the small pocket of air that remained, and gasped. Then she dug. Not elegantly, not strategically. She dug the way an animal digs, with both hands, pulling dirt down and past her body, filling the box below her as she clawed upward through the earth above. The soil was loose, freshly turned, not packed, because Julian had buried her only hours ago, and the earth hadn't settled. She dug upward, inch by inch. The dirt pressed against her from every side, in her hair, her ears, her clothing. She couldn't breathe through her nose, packed with earth. She breathed through her mouth, taking tiny sips of air that tasted like soil and copper and life. Her hand broke the surface. Cold air hit her fingers. Night air. Real air. She clawed wider, pulled herself upward, and her face broke through the dirt into a sky full of stars. She gasped. The sound was raw, animal, desperate, the sound of a body reclaiming the oxygen that had been stolen from it. She pulled herself out of the hole with arms that shook and legs that barely worked, and she lay on the cold ground, staring at the sky and breathing and breathing and breathing. She was in a field. Open. Dark. Trees at the edges. No lights, no structures, no sound except crickets and her own ragged breath, and, somewhere in the distance, the approaching wail of sirens. Tap like if you've ever fought your way out of something you were never supposed to survive, because the sirens were heading to Mara. But they were also heading to Julian Cross, and what the police found on his property and his computer ended more than just a business dispute. Henderson County Search and Rescue arrived at 12:34 a.m. 3 vehicles, 2 ambulances, a canine unit that turned out to be unnecessary because Mara was sitting upright on the ground beside the hole she'd climbed out of, covered in dirt from head to waist, shaking violently. Alive. The first paramedic, a man named Cole, who'd been doing this for 15 years, ran to her and dropped to his knees. "Ma'am, are you Mara Sitko?" "Yes." "Are you injured?" "I don't know. I can't feel my legs. I think that's just cold." "Let's get you warm and checked out." He wrapped a thermal blanket around her, took her vitals. Blood pressure elevated, heart rate 140. Oxygen saturation, remarkably, 94%. She'd managed her air better than she knew. "Ma'am, can you tell me what happened?" "Julian Cross drugged me, put me in a box, and buried me in this field. I had a phone with 3% battery. I called 911. The phone died. I broke the box open and dug myself out." Cole looked at the hole, at the broken pine lid visible inside it, at the dirt under Mara's fingernails, packed deep, bloody where the nails had torn. "You dug yourself out," he repeated. "The box was cheap. Ma'am, you were buried under approximately 2 feet of soil. Then I dug through 2 feet of soil." Cole looked at her, 53 years old, 130 pounds, covered in grave dirt, hands bleeding, eyes absolutely clear. And he understood that he was looking at someone who had done something that most people couldn't do at peak physical condition. And she'd done it in a coffin, with no air and no light, and no plan beyond the decision to not die. "You're going to the hospital," he said. "And you're going to tell the detectives everything. Send them to 4100 Ridgecrest Drive. Julian Cross, He's home. He's sleeping. He thinks I'm dead.
How do you know he's sleeping?
Because Julian Cross is the kind of man who buries someone and sleeps well. It's what makes him dangerous.
The detectives arrived at Julian Cross's house at 1:15 a.m. The house was a monument to the kind of wealth that looks tasteful from a distance and obscene up close. 6 bedrooms, 4-car garage, a lawn maintained by a crew of 5, a wine cellar that Julian had personally curated with bottles that cost more than Mara's burial box by a factor of several hundred. The lights were off. Julian was sleeping, as predicted. Detective Sarah Molina rang the doorbell, then knocked louder. The door opened. Julian Cross stood in the doorway in silk pajamas and a bathrobe, his hair slightly mussed, his face carrying the confused irritation of a man whose evening had not included the possibility of police at his door. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Cross, Detective Molina, Henderson County. We need to speak with you about Mara Sitko." Julian's expression didn't change. That was the tell. When a name you've heard before produces zero reaction, no surprise, no confusion, no "who?" it means the name was expected. And expected names at 1 a.m. means preparation. "Mara, is she all right?" "You tell us." "I'm sorry, what is this about?" "Mr. Cross, Mara Sitko called 911 tonight from a box buried underground on a property registered to you in Henderson County. She stated that you drugged her at your home earlier this evening, placed her in a wooden container, and buried her alive." Julian's smile appeared, the one Mara had described, smooth, practiced, the smile of a man whose face was a door that never opened. "That's absurd. Mara had dinner with me tonight. She left around 9. She was fine. A little tipsy, she'd had several glasses of wine, but perfectly fine." "She dug herself out of a grave, Mr. Cross." "I don't know what she's talking about. She's been unstable since David died. Paranoid, making wild accusations. She's been trying to push me out of the company and—" "Mr. Cross, we have GPS data placing her phone in a field on your Henderson County property. We have the box. We have her blood and tissue under the nails of her hands. And we have a text message from your phone sent at 9:47 p.m. tonight that reads, 'You should have signed the papers, Mara. Sweet dreams.'" The smile cracked. Not dramatically, a hairline fracture, the kind only someone watching closely would notice. "I'd like to speak with my lawyer." "That's your right. In the meantime, we have a warrant." She handed it to him. Julian read it. His hands, for the first time in a decade of composed, controlled, calculated living, shook. The search took 4 hours. In Julian's home office, behind a false panel in the wine cellar that Mara had never known about, detectives found a safe. The safe contained documents, partnership agreements, transfer papers, insurance policies, and a laptop that Julian had kept separate from his regular devices. The laptop contained 3 things that ended Julian Cross's life as he knew it. First, research. Browser history spanning 8 months. How long can a person survive in a sealed container? Sedative dosages by body weight. Soil composition and burial depth. How to construct an airtight container. How GPS tracking works on mobile phones. Julian had planned this for 8 months, since the day Mara said no. Second, a draft email, never sent, to his attorney, outlining the steps to claim emergency control of David Sitko's company in the event of Mara's incapacitation or death. The email contained a timeline. The transfer would be filed within 72 hours of Mara's disappearance, before her body was found, before the legal process could intervene. By the time anyone knew she was gone, Julian would own the company. Third, David Sitko's medical records, obtained illegally from a private physician. The records showed that David had been prescribed a heart medication 6 months before his death, prescribed not by his cardiologist, but by a doctor Mara had never heard of, at a clinic David had never visited. Detective Molina read the medical file twice. Then she called the forensic unit. "I need David Sitko's death re-examined. Full toxicology. Compare the prescribed medication with what was found in his system at autopsy." "His death was ruled natural causes, heart attack." "I know what it was ruled. I want to know what it was." The toxicology came back in 72 hours. David Sitko's system had contained elevated levels of digoxin, a heart medication that, in the wrong dosage, could trigger the exact kind of cardiac event that had killed him. The medication he'd been prescribed by the unknown doctor was a dosage 3 times higher than standard. David Sitko hadn't died of a heart attack. He'd been poisoned. By a man who'd waited 8 months, watched his partner die, and then tried to bury the only person standing between him and $90 million. Julian Cross was arrested on a Wednesday morning. Not at his house, at his office, in the glass tower where David Sitko had built a company from one truck, sitting in the chair David used to sit in, behind the desk David used to work at. The charges: attempted murder of Mara Sitko, murder in the first degree of David Sitko, fraud, conspiracy. "You don't have proof," Julian said as the handcuffs clicked. The smile was gone now. The face was pale. The silk was replaced by a county-issued jumpsuit within the hour. "We have your browser history," Detective Molina said. "We have your text message. We have the box. We have the grave. We have your laptop with the transfer documents and the medical files. And we have the toxicology report on David Sitko, showing the drug you prescribed him through a fake doctor at a fake clinic." "I want my lawyer." "Your lawyer's already been notified. He's meeting you at the station." "This is a misunderstanding. Mara she's unstable. She's been making accusations since she dug herself out of a grave you put her in, Mr. Cross. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime scene with your name on the shovel." Julian went silent. The particular silence of a man whose operating system had crashed. Mara testified at the trial 4 months later. She wore a simple gray suit. Her hands had healed. The nails had grown back, though the scars underneath remained. She walked to the witness stand with the measured steps of a woman who'd crawled through 2 feet of dirt and could therefore walk through anything. "Can you describe the moment you woke up in the box?" the prosecutor asked. "Dirt. Hitting wood. Above my face. I didn't understand at first. Then I did." "What did you do?" "I found my phone. 3%. I called 911. "And when the phone died?" Mara looked at the jury. 12 faces, all watching. "I decided I wasn't going to die in a box a billionaire bought for $30. So I pushed the lid open, and I dug." "You dug through 2 feet of soil." "I dug through whatever was between me and my daughter." The courtroom was silent. "My husband built a company from nothing. 1 truck, 1 route. Julian poisoned him to take it. Then he tried to bury me to finish the job. He thought a cheap box and 2 feet of dirt would be enough." She held up her hands.
The scars were visible, thin, pale, running beneath fingernails that had torn through pine and soil and darkness. It wasn't enough. Guilty. All counts. Both murders, the completed one and the attempted one. Fraud. Conspiracy. Sentencing. Life without parole. Julian stood motionless. His lawyer whispered. Julian didn't hear him. He was looking at Mara. She looked back, not with hatred, not with triumph, with the particular calm of a woman who had been underground and had chosen to come back up, and who understood now, with absolute clarity, that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a man with a shovel. It's a woman he underestimated. Mara took over the company, not because she'd planned to, because David had planned for her. His will, his trust, his careful structuring of the business, all of it designed to ensure that if anything happened to him, the company would survive in the hands of the person he trusted most. She ran it the way David had run it, from the ground up, one truck at a time. She promoted the drivers David had hired. She expanded the routes David had planned. She built the company David had dreamed of, using the blueprint he'd left and the stubbornness she'd discovered in a pine box underground. Sophie asked her once, a year later, on a Saturday morning, eating pancakes in the kitchen. "Mom, were you scared? In the box?" "Yes." "How scared?" "The most scared I've ever been in my life." "Then how did you get out?" Mara looked at her daughter, David's eyes. 12 years old, soon to be 13, asking the kind of question that deserved an honest answer. "I thought about you," Mara said. "And I decided that being scared wasn't the same as being finished. So I pushed, and the box broke. And I dug." "Because you're strong?" "Because I'm your mother. And mothers don't stay buried." Sophie nodded, went back to her pancakes. 12 years old, and already wise enough to understand that some answers are that simple. Mara drank her coffee, looked out the kitchen window at the morning. The sun was up. The sky was clear. The world was exactly as wide and bright and possible as it had been the morning before Julian Cross decided to put her underground. She was here, above ground, breathing air that belonged to everyone. And that, after everything, was enough.